My uncle left me a mansion, and my greedy cousin hated it. I didn't cry at my uncle's funeral, not because I didn't love him, but because I knew he wouldn't want me to. What I didn't know was that his last gift would destroy my family. I've always believed funerals reveal more about the living than the dead. And that morning, as rain dripped from the edges of black umbrellas and murmured prayers filled the cemetery, I saw the truth of that in my cousin Liam's face. He wasn't mourning, he was calculating. Uncle Raymond's casket sat beneath a gray sky, and I stood at the edge of the crowd, hands in my pockets, listening to the pastor talk about a man of great generosity. That part was true. Raymond had been the kind of man who could turn strangers into family and family into strangers, depending on how you treated him. Liam, of course, stood front and center like he was the grieving son. He even dabbed fake tears with a silk handkerchief, the same one he used to clean his Rolex. I wanted to feel angry, but I couldn't. Raymond had always known who Liam really was. Maybe that's why he used to joke that death would be the only thing that shut him up. As the service ended, I stayed back, watching the mourners drift away. The mansion stood in the distance behind the trees, a shadow of wealth and legacy. It looked exactly like I remembered from my childhood summers. The iron gates, the sprawling garden, the fountain that never seemed to stop flowing even when everything else did. That house was where I learned that money didn't mean peace. My uncle had taught me that. "Ethan, there you are," Liam called out, his voice cutting through the drizzle like a saw. He approached with that smug grin I'd grown up hating. "I was wondering when you'd crawl out from hiding. Guess the prodigal nephew decided to show up after all." "Hey, Liam." I kept my tone neutral. "Just here to pay respects," he laughed. "Yeah, right. We both know you were just waiting to see what's in the will." "I didn't come for that." "Sure you didn't," he said, straightening his tie. "Still working that dead-end job, huh? Guess you're hoping Uncle Ray left you his old wristwatch or something." I clenched my jaw but said nothing. There was no point. Liam always needed to win, even in conversations that didn't matter. He clapped me on the shoulder, pretending to be friendly. "Don't take it personally, man. Uncle Ray loved you, but let's be honest, he practically raised me. I'm basically his son. Everyone knows the estate's mine. The lawyers are just wasting time with formalities." He walked away before I could answer, laughing under his breath. Uncle Raymond had been more of a father to me than my own dad ever was. My parents divorced when I was 10, and I bounced between them like unwanted mail. But Raymond, he always had room for me. He was this larger-than-life figure who lived with an old-world elegance but treated me like an equal. He'd pour himself a glass of whiskey, hand me a soda, and say, "Let's talk about something real," and we would. About dreams, about fear, about how people like Liam would spend their lives chasing power and end up with nothing worth holding on to. So yeah, I didn't cry that day, because Raymond wouldn't have wanted me to. He'd have said, "Don't waste tears on what's gone, kid. Save them for what's worth saving." Still, I wasn't ready for what came next. A few hours later, we gathered in the lawyer's office. The room smelled like old paper and polished wood, the kind of place where people pretend to grieve while secretly hoping for numbers to be higher than expected. The lawyer, a stiff man named Mr. Whitaker, adjusted his glasses and began reading the will. The tension in that room was thick enough to taste. "I, Raymond Harrison, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath my estate as follows." Liam leaned back in his chair, smirking, arms crossed. He'd already started planning his new life. "To my nephew, Liam Harrison," the lawyer continued, "I leave the contents of my safe deposit box and my collection of vintage watches." Liam nodded, grinning, until Mr. Whitaker didn't stop reading. "And to my other nephew, Ethan Cole, I leave my entire estate, including the family mansion, surrounding property, and all financial holdings, under the condition that he alone shall be the executor of my final wishes." The room went silent. For a full 5 seconds, I thought I'd misheard. Liam blinked, his mouth open. What did you just say?" Mr. Whitaker cleared his throat. "Mr. Raymond Harrison's estate, including the mansion, is left entirely to Mr. Ethan Cole." No, that's not possible. That's a mistake." Liam slammed his hand on the desk. "He must have meant me. I'm his blood." The lawyer adjusted his glasses calmly. "That is what the document states. It was signed, notarized, and witnessed 6 months ago." Everyone's eyes turned to me. My heart pounded. I couldn't even process it. The mansion, the land, the accounts. I hadn't even known Raymond was sick enough to rewrite his will. Liam's voice broke the silence again, loud and venomous. "You manipulated him. That's what happened. You tricked an old man into giving you what's mine." "Liam, stop," I said quietly. "Don't you dare tell me to stop. You were never even close to him. He pitied you. And now you're stealing what's rightfully mine." He stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. His mother, my aunt, grabbed his arm, whispering for him to sit down, but he shook her off and stormed out. The room felt smaller after that. Everyone looked uncomfortable, like they wanted to disappear. I sat there frozen, the lawyer's voice distant now as he talked about paperwork and transfer details. My mind was spinning. Raymond had left everything to me. I didn't understand why. When I finally stepped outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the world quiet and heavy. I stood beside my car, staring at the sky, the will still echoing in my head. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a burden I hadn't earned. "Congratulations," a voice said behind me. It was Mrs. Harlow, Raymond's old housekeeper. She'd been at his side since before I was born, and in many ways, she was family too. Her gray hair was tucked neatly under her hat, and her eyes were kind but tired. He always said you had his heart, she said softly. Now it seems you have his house too. I don't know if I can accept it, I admitted. It doesn't feel right. Your uncle rarely did things by accident, she replied. If he gave it to you, there's a reason. He saw something others didn't. I wanted to believe that, but all I could think of was the look on Liam's face, the fury, the disbelief. Something told me that wouldn't be the last time I saw it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept pacing my apartment, replaying everything, every conversation with my uncle, every hint I might have missed. The letterhead from the lawyer's office sat on my table beside a glass of whiskey that had long gone warm. Around midnight, I finally noticed it, an envelope tucked between the pages of the will folder. It was sealed with dark red wax, marked with a simple R. My pulse quickened as I broke it open. Inside was a single piece of stationery with my uncle's handwriting, the kind that slanted slightly right, confident and old-fashioned. Ethan, if you're reading this, then my trust has already found its place. You always sought truth over comfort, and that's why the house is yours. But know this, the mansion holds more than walls and rooms. It holds history. Ours. Find the truth before they destroy it. R. I must have read it 10 times trying to understand. Find the truth before they destroy it. What truth? Who was they? Liam? His mother? Some hidden scandal? For a long time, I just sat there in silence, staring at the letter. I felt something stir inside me. A mixture of curiosity and dread. I'd always loved that mansion. The endless hallways, the giant staircase, the way light spilled through the stained glass windows in the mornings. It had felt alive back then, but now it felt like it was calling me back for a reason. The next morning, I drove out to the estate. The gates creaked open as if recognizing me. The air smelled like wet earth and memory. Every step I took on that gravel path echoed with pieces of my childhood, races with Liam, laughter with my uncle, Sunday breakfast on the terrace. Now it all felt hollow. The house loomed ahead, 3 stories of dark stone and whispered legacy. The windows reflected nothing but gray clouds. Mrs. Harlow met me at the front door. I was expecting you, she said, her tone both warm and knowing. He said you'd come. I glanced around the grand foyer. Dust motes floated in shafts of light. Everything was exactly as I remembered, yet heavier somehow. It feels strange being here, I admitted. She nodded. It'll feel stranger once you start learning what you've inherited. What do you mean? Her eyes softened. This house has seen more than its share of lies, Ethan. Raymond tried to make peace with them before he died. Maybe now you'll finish what he started. Before I could respond, she handed me a set of old keys tied together with a leather strap. Every lock has its story, she said. He wanted you to have these. I held them, feeling the cold metal bite into my palm. Somewhere deep in the house, a floorboard creaked, soft but deliberate. It felt like the mansion was exhaling after years of silence. That's when I knew. Whatever my uncle had left me, it wasn't just bricks and inheritance, it was a mystery and a warning. I took a deep breath, looked up at the staircase that curved toward the shadows above, and whispered to myself, all right, uncle, let's find the truth. And that was the moment everything began to unravel. Because the mansion wasn't just my inheritance. It was the beginning of a storm that would tear my family apart. The house creaked, like it remembered things it shouldn't, and I was starting to believe it did. Moving into the mansion was like stepping into a dream I wasn't sure I wanted to have. The gate swung open with a groan, as if reluctant to let me in, and the gravel crunched beneath my shoes in a rhythm that felt oddly alive. Shadows clung to the edges of the estate, stretching the trees like dark fingers reaching for the sky. It smelled of rain, earth, and something older. Wood polished by decades of hands, floors worn smooth by years of footsteps, and the faint hint of candle wax long burned down to memory. I had imagined it would feel like winning the lottery, or at least a fleeting euphoria. Instead, it felt heavy, weighted with stories, secrets, and ghosts I couldn't yet see. The front door was enormous, dark oak with ornate carvings of roses and vines, and it resisted my push like it had been expecting me all along. Inside, the foyer stretched like a cathedral. Chandeliers hung low, dust catching the light in sparkling specks, and a massive staircase curved into the upper floors. The smell of aged wood and old books lingered in the air. It was magnificent and eerie all at once. Mrs. Harlow was waiting for me. Welcome home, Mr. Cole, she said softly, her hands folded neatly over her apron. Her gray hair was pinned back, her eyes sharp and cautious. She had that uncanny ability to make you feel like she could see through every lie and every thought, and for a moment, I wondered if Uncle Raymond had left her in charge of watching me, more than the house. Thanks, I said, my voice betraying a mix of awe and unease. I can't believe I'm actually here. You will, she replied, her lips twitching like she was suppressing a smile. But you must be careful. Some things in this house weren't meant to be found. I froze. What do you mean? She shook her head gently. It's nothing to worry about right now. You'll understand in time. Just remember, everything here has a purpose, and some doors are closed for good reasons. Her words, cryptic as they were, sent a chill down my spine. I had thought moving in meant settling into a life of luxury, perhaps with occasional encounters with Liam or distant relatives, but this house already felt alive, like it was observing me, waiting for me to take a step wrong. The first few days were a mixture of discovery and adjustment. The mansion was enormous. Too big for one person, but I wanted it all to be mine. My uncle's legacy, even if it scared me. Every room had a story. Some were stunning, with vaulted ceilings and antique furniture polished to a mirror finish. Others were neglected, wallpaper peeling, curtains frayed, dust thick enough to leave prints when I touched anything. Locked doors were everywhere. Some had old brass keys left by Uncle Raymond himself, still dangling from hooks in the hallway. Others were stubborn, chained shut or sealed with heavy locks. My curiosity gnawed at me, but Mrs. Harlowe's warning lingered in my mind. In the library, I found shelves packed with leather-bound books, some so old their pages had started turning to dust. A portrait of my uncle hung above the fireplace, his stern gaze softened by the hint of a smile. Next to it was another portrait, a woman I didn't recognize, her eyes dark, almost accusing, yet strangely familiar. My heart thumped in a mixture of fascination and unease. It didn't take long for Liam to make his first appearance. He showed up uninvited, acting casual. "Hey, Ethan," he said, hands stuffed in the pockets of his designer coat. "Just wanted to check in on the place. Don't want the new owner to get lonely." I narrowed my eyes. "You're here to visit or to snoop?" He laughed. That infuriating, smug laugh I knew too well. "Come on. You think I'd pass up the chance to see my childhood home again? Besides, Uncle Ray and I, well, family stuff." It was obvious. He wasn't here to check on me. He was sizing up the house, trying to figure out if there was anything he could claim, anything he could manipulate. I told him politely that he wasn't welcome, and he left, shooting me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I started spending more time exploring, discovering rooms I didn't remember from childhood visits. Behind an old tapestry, I found a small door, barely large enough to crawl through. Inside was a study, filled with the scent of old paper and ink. Stacks of letters, property papers, and photographs littered the desk and shelves. One photograph made my blood run cold. It was Liam's mother, my aunt, posing with a man I didn't recognize. Uncle Raymond's eyes were visible in the background of another photo, narrowed and watchful. There was something intimate about the shot, something that hinted at betrayal. As I rifled through the documents, I realized my uncle had suspected more than I'd imagined. He'd left notes about family dealings, hints that not everything Liam claimed was true. And then it hit me. Liam might not even be his biological son. The thought made me uneasy, but it also explained a lot. The entitled arrogance, the greed, the way Liam had always acted like the world owed him something. Perhaps he had no right to expect anything from Raymond at all. The house seemed to respond to my realizations. That night, the lights flickered. At first I thought it was a storm, but the wind was calm outside. The chandelier in the foyer swayed slightly, even though I hadn't touched it. A floorboard creaked upstairs, though no one was there. I tried not to let it scare me. Old houses did that sometimes, but the feeling didn't leave. It was like the mansion remembered things, and it didn't like being disturbed. Then came the first accident. I'd left the library lamp on while checking a document and returned a few minutes later to find the lampshade slightly singed. At first, I thought it was an electrical fault, but the fuse box was fine and Mrs. Harlowe insisted the wiring was checked last month. A day later, my car wouldn't start. When I looked under the hood, someone had loosened a wire. That same night, the library curtains caught a spark. Thankfully, I managed to smother it before it turned into fire. It was clear to me then, someone was trying to scare me. Liam. There was no one else it could be. Despite the threats, I couldn't turn back. Not now. Uncle Raymond had trusted me with this house, and I felt an obligation to uncover whatever secrets it held. In the following days, I returned to the hidden study. I discovered letters from my uncle, written over the past decade, addressed vaguely to the one who deserves the truth. He hinted at betrayals, lies, and the real meaning of family. He'd clearly been protecting me, and perhaps testing me, long before his death. The photograph of Liam's mother kept haunting me. The notes suggested a relationship that Raymond never fully forgave, a betrayal that may have shaped Liam's entitlement. It was painful, knowing the people I grew up calling family were capable of such deception. And then, in the back of a desk drawer, I found an envelope, sealed in dark wax like the letter he left me at the lawyer's office. On it, written in his unmistakable handwriting, were the words, "For the one who truly deserves the name." My hands shook as I held it. My heart thumped with anticipation and fear. I had no idea what awaited inside, but I knew one thing for certain. This envelope was the next step in whatever test my uncle had set up for me. I sat down at the desk, staring at it, the house creaking around me. It felt alive, aware as if it were breathing with anticipation. I could feel the weight of every secret, every betrayal, every truth waiting to be discovered within its walls. Somewhere deep down, I knew that opening that envelope would change everything, and I wasn't ready to turn back. The mansion had secrets, and I was ready to uncover them. Blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty does. My uncle knew that long before we did. I stared at the envelope on the desk for what felt like hours, though it could have been minutes. The wax seal glinted faintly in the dim light, red and glossy, like it was daring me to break it. Uncle Raymond had left so many clues, so many warnings, so many pieces of a puzzle that I was only beginning to understand. And now, here it was, the next piece. My fingers trembled slightly as I broke the seal. Inside was a thick folder labeled simply, "For Ethan Cole the Truth." Inside, I found documents, letters, and a single folder marked DNA test results. My pulse quickened as I opened it. The report was clear, clinical, and devastating in a way I couldn't have imagined. Liam's DNA did not match Uncle Raymond's. Not even close. I sank into the chair, trying to process it. Liam wasn't Raymond's biological son. All those years of claiming entitlement, the arrogance, the sense of ownership over everything Raymond had. None of it had a legitimate foundation. The envelope also contained a letter, written in Raymond's precise handwriting, curling slightly at the edges as if it had been waiting patiently for me. Ethan, if you are reading this, then you are ready to know the truth. I discovered years ago that Liam's mother was unfaithful. I loved her still, and I raised him as my own, hoping that love would be enough to shape him, but it was not. He has grown greedy, manipulative, and cruel, just as you've seen. I leave you the mansion not as a gift, but as a protection, for the legacy I cannot entrust to him. You are the only one who ever truly cared, who listened, who understood. Guard it, cherish it, and uncover the truths that the world may try to hide from you. Raymond. My hands were shaking. For a moment, I felt a wave of sorrow for Liam. Not sympathy exactly, but a recognition that he had been set up to fail, shaped by lies and entitlement. Then anger bubbled up, fierce and white-hot. He had spent his life thinking he deserved everything, and now the proof of what he truly was. It would crush him. I knew I had to confront him. I couldn't just sit back while he schemed, even if the law was technically on my side. I found him later that afternoon in a coffee shop, pretending to be casual, scrolling on his phone, waiting to coincidentally see me. Liam, I said, sitting across from him, trying to keep my voice calm. We need to talk. He looked up, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. Talk? About what, Ethan? About how you stole everything from me? I didn't steal anything. Your father? You mean Raymond? He spat, his voice sharp, venom rising. Yeah, that old man probably hated me anyway. You manipulated him. You wormed your way into his head while I was loyal. You think loyalty is blood, Liam? I said quietly. Blood doesn't make you family. Uncle Raymond knew that, and he knew the only person here who deserved his trust was me. He laughed then, a bitter, hollow laugh that made my stomach churn. You think a stupid piece of paper proves that? A DNA test? That changes nothing. You don't deserve anything. This house, his money, it's mine by right. I shook my head. No, Liam. Rights aren't given by who screams the loudest or calls themselves a son. Rights are earned, and Uncle Raymond earned the right to decide. His face darkened. You're going to regret this, Ethan. I'll take it all. By force if I have to. That was the moment I realized the war wasn't over. It hadn't even begun. The next day, the first signs of sabotage appeared. I returned to the mansion after running some errands and found my car slashed, deep gashes along the doors, the tires punctured. My stomach dropped. Whoever had done this wasn't subtle. Inside, the mansion didn't feel safe either. The hidden study, the one I had spent days carefully examining, had been ransacked. Papers torn, books scattered, drawers pulled open. It looked like a tornado had blown through. I called the police, reporting a burglary under my own name. While waiting, Mrs. Harlow arrived, her expression tight. Did you call anyone else? She asked softly. No, I said. I don't know who. She held up a hand, cutting me off. I do. Liam, he's been here. I frowned. How do you know? She smiled faintly, though her eyes were serious. Cameras, Mr. Cole. Every entry, every hallway, every corridor. I kept them running. Liam didn't know I'd stored footage from before the will was read. I have everything. Sure enough, later we reviewed the footage. Liam was unmistakable, prowling the halls, rifling through my things, trying to make it look like he had a legitimate reason. The evidence was damning. The police came quickly, arresting him for attempted burglary, property damage, and harassment. But even as he was led away, I noticed the smirk he gave me. It wasn't a grin of defeat, it was a challenge, a warning. I realized then that this wasn't just about property. Liam wanted power, control, and maybe revenge. And the mansion, the place my uncle had entrusted to me, was now a battleground. That night, I was sitting in the library, trying to make sense of everything, when the alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed across the walls, piercing the gloom. I grabbed a flashlight and ran through the house, heart hammering. Somewhere upstairs, I heard a floorboard creak. Deliberate and slow, I followed it to the master hallway. That's when I saw it. A message written in red across the wall of the landing, like blood or paint. You'll lose it all too. The words were jagged, angry, personal. My stomach dropped. Liam hadn't left quietly. He hadn't been defeated by the law. He was still here, in spirit if not physically, threatening everything Uncle Raymond had left me. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I knew that moment marked a turning point. The mansion wasn't just a home now, it was a test, and I was at the center of it. For the first time, I felt the full weight of what my uncle had left me. Not just the house or the inheritance, but a legacy of vigilance, responsibility, and truth. I couldn't just enjoy it or hide from Liam's schemes. I had to protect it, understand it, and perhaps, most importantly, discover what else my uncle had hidden from all of us. Days blurred together after that. I reinforced locks, installed security cameras, and stayed awake late into the night combing through every room. Every painting, every old ledger, every letter, nothing was trivial anymore. In the process, I discovered more documents about Liam's mother, corroborating the DNA evidence. Uncle Raymond had documented years of suspicions, recording dates, letters, and even witness accounts. He had built a fortress of proof to protect me from a man who had never deserved a single thing he claimed. The house, I realized, wasn't just bricks and wood. It was a living record, a vault of truth. Every creak of the floor, every shadow in the corner seemed to whisper secrets, urging me to dig deeper. And that envelope, the one I hadn't opened yet, sat on the desk like a promise. I didn't know what lay inside, but I knew it would push me further, force me to confront the realities of my family, and perhaps prepare me for the next stage of Liam's vendetta. I picked it up, fingers brushing the wax seal. Uncle Raymond's words echoed in my mind. Find the truth before they destroy it. The mansion wasn't done testing me. Liam wasn't done trying to take everything, and I had no choice but to face it all. I set the envelope carefully aside and leaned back in my chair, the shadows of the library stretching across the floor like silent observers. The storm was just beginning, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. But one thing was certain. I wouldn't run. Not now. Not ever. My uncle didn't just leave me a house. He left me a test, and Liam failed it. The mansion was quieter than usual, the morning after the latest alarm. Red light still lingered in my mind, spelling, "You'll lose it all too," across the hallway wall like a warning I couldn't shake. I spent hours walking through the rooms, listening to the creaks and whispers of the house, feeling its weight settle on my shoulders. Each step was a reminder that Raymond hadn't just left me a fortune, he had left me a responsibility, one I was still learning to bear. The hidden study, which had become my sanctuary over the past week, beckoned me again. Dust floated in the shafts of sunlight cutting through the tall windows. Papers lay strewn across the floor where Liam had tried to make it look like I'd been careless. I ignored the mess, setting my mind on the task at hand, uncovering every secret my uncle had left me. I started with his notes, meticulously written over the years, often in the margins of documents, often in letters tucked inside drawers. Each one hinted at puzzles, loyalties, and the truths Raymond had tried to shield from a world that was more interested in greed than honor. And then I found it, a folded piece of paper, carefully hidden beneath the false bottom of a drawer. It was heavier than the rest, a different texture, almost ceremonial. The title on top read, "The Second Clause." I felt a chill run down my spine. Raymond hadn't just left me the mansion. He had left me instructions, almost like a final game, a challenge. I unfolded the letter and read carefully. To Ethan, if you are reading this, then you have inherited the house. But inheritance is never simply about ownership. I foresaw the greed that would follow my passing. I foresaw the chaos, the entitlement, the betrayal. Therefore, I have left you a second clause. Your right to this estate is conditional. You must maintain it, protect it, and uncover the truth about loyalty. Only then shall you retain everything I have worked for. If you fail, or if greed drives you from the path, the estate shall be transferred in its entirety to charity, to benefit those who seek nothing for themselves. Remember, Ethan, the house is not a prize, it is a measure. R. I sank into the chair, gripping the edges of the desk. The house wasn't just inheritance, it was a test. My uncle had known Liam's nature, had predicted his greed, and had set up a way to see who was worthy. It wasn't enough to survive his death or to claim the mansion on paper. I had to prove, every day, that I was the person Raymond believed I could be. Loyalty, care, vigilance, these were the real conditions of my inheritance. In Liam, he had already failed. That evening, as the sky darkened and shadows pooled across the mansion, I heard a noise at the gates. Heavy, hurried steps. My blood ran cold. It was Liam. He had escaped bail. He was back, and he wasn't coming to talk. I confronted him at the door, holding nothing but my hands in front of me. "Liam, this ends tonight. You don't belong here." He laughed. A cruel, jagged sound that echoed in the empty hall. "Belong here? Ethan, you think this house belongs to you because of a piece of paper? You think your little moral high ground matters? I will take it all. By fire, by force, by whatever it takes." Before I could respond, he lunged. The fight wasn't just physical, it was every moment of resentment, betrayal, and fury we'd carried for years. Hands gripping, shoves, accusations shouted over the thunder of our emotions. "You manipulated Uncle Raymond," he screamed. "You're not worthy, and you weren't worthy," I yelled back, dodging a punch. "Blood doesn't make family, Liam. Loyalty does. That's what he wanted you to understand, and you never learned." We grappled near the balcony, the wind whipping through the open French doors. In a moment of blind rage, Liam slipped, fingers scrabbling for the edge. My heart leapt into my throat. Instinct took over. I grabbed him, pulling him back from the edge with every ounce of strength I had. He glared at me, wild, angry, desperate. But I held him steady. "You're not losing this," I said, voice low and firm. "Not tonight, not ever." Police sirens wailed in the distance, and within minutes officers were at the door, having been alerted by a motion sensor that Liam had triggered. They arrived just in time to take him into custody, but the image of him hanging over the balcony, the fury, the fear, the vulnerability would haunt me for hours. He was arrested again, this time on charges of arson, assault, and breaking and entering. And while the law did its work, I sat in the mansion, breathing hard, listening to the echo of the house. My uncle had trusted me. I had passed the first true test. The weeks that followed were a blur of restoration and reflection. With Mrs. Harlow's help, I repaired the damage Liam had caused. Broken windows, torn curtains, trashed rooms, all painstakingly restored. Each day, I explored deeper, reading more of Raymond's notes, uncovering little lessons he had hidden in the margins of letters or the arrangement of books. The mansion slowly came alive again. Not as a fortress of secrets, but as a place of purpose. I decided to honor Raymond's vision by turning parts of the estate into a community art center. Workshops for local kids, galleries for emerging artists, and open spaces where anyone could come and create. Every corner of the mansion became infused with meaning, from the restored library where I read Raymond's letters, to the garden where I planted flowers in his memory. I felt him with me, guiding, approving, even smiling at the life I was building in his name. Months passed, and the mansion was no longer just a building. It was a symbol of everything I had learned: patience, loyalty, vigilance, and love. I understood now that inheritance was never about possession. It was about responsibility. And then, one afternoon, a letter arrived in the mail. The envelope was aged, edges browned, and the handwriting unmistakable. My uncle's. Dated years ago, it had somehow been stored, waiting for the right moment. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Ethan, you have done what I hoped you would. You have proven that family is not defined by blood, but by care, loyalty, and heart. The house is yours, not because you claimed it, but because you earned it. You have found the truth, and you have honored it. Family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shares your heart. I smiled, closing the letter and holding it to my chest. The mansion, the chaos, the tests, it had all led to this understanding. Standing at the balcony, I watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The estate glowed in the fading light, alive and vibrant, no longer a test, but a home. A legacy, a promise kept. I realized then that I hadn't just inherited a house. I had inherited understanding, responsibility, and the courage to do what was right. And in that moment, I felt truly worthy. Not as a nephew, not as an heir, but as a man who finally understood what it meant to carry a legacy. The mansion was silent now, the kind of silence that feels warm instead of oppressive. And for the first time since my uncle's funeral, I smiled without guilt or fear. I had found the truth, I had honored it, and I was home. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.